Hello and welcome to the Snowflake Spotlight. I'm your host, Caveman Only, and this is a podcast series where I interview one unique Iron Man in the old school Runescape community each episode, diving deep to examine the intricacies of their special Snowflake account. But before we get started, I think you know what time it is. It's sellout time, folks. And I am delighted to continue my sponsorship for OSRS. Subscribe to cavemanonly.com. Sorry, Freudian slip. I'm happy to continue my sponsorship for OSRS bestinslot.com. This website, man, wow, what a beaut. And let me tell you why. So now that I've finally started raiding on Caveman Only, this site has become my go-to tool for determining my raiding parties on a daily basis. Using the Chambers of Zeah gear setup tool, I am able to justify discriminating against all of the noobs who try to get into my raiding party with only Blessed D'hide and a Nate is not Helm. Yeah, right, dude. Instead, I can look at the gear picker tool and easily see the overall value of your setup to determine your intrinsic worth as a human being. How neat is that? On top of that, I've added this site to my arsenal of fantasy websites where I can sit and think about a nice big chest full of loot in raids that will contain some of my best in slot items for my account and then compare them to my current gear as you see here. That's pretty neat. It's not too often that you get all this neatness in one location, folks, so be sure to check out OSRSbestinslot.com for all of your fantasy gear needs. Or don't. I'm not your mother. Anyway, enough of that. Now on to the content. For today's episode, I have with me one of the new guys on the block. He has one of the craziest and fastest growing Snowflake YouTube channels out there right now, Mr. TurtleTale and his Tirannwn only Ultimate Iron Man. TurtleTale,
Yeah.
I appreciate you being here with me today.
Oh, no, pleasure to be here. It's all mine. Very excited to be on here and excited to chat about it and, get out there, get the word out there.
Yeah, we have a lot to talk about. Now, as always, I gotta ask, how is the weather in the Elven lands today, my friend?
In the Elven lands, I think it's pretty good, but over in Oz, oh boy, is it like a 40-degree day at the moment. It's hot.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, now, for those listening at home, generally I like to record these podcasts in the morning, but for me, it is 9 p.m. where I am. What time is it there for you?
It's 3 in the afternoon here.
3 in the afternoon, yeah, so a little different. Yeah. So it was a little bit hard for us to coordinate this interview just due to our time zone differences. So to get the ball rolling here, why don't you go ahead and give us a little bit of a background? So where are you hailing from right now?
Right now from Sydney, so Australia, as I'm sure you can guess. Yeah, kind of lived here for my whole life, and but just got off work this afternoon, so I'm keen to just get on here and jump into that.
Very nice, very nice. Now, we'll get to this a bit later, but I do know that job is going to be going by the wayside pretty soon. So that's very exciting to hear that you're going to be making the leap to do this full time.
Yeah, no, very, very daunting, but no, super excited for it. So Friday hopefully should be my last day if everything goes to plan.
Okay, very nice. Well, hey, early congratulations to you, man.
Thank you.
So you're coming from the land down under. I hear that it is beautiful territory down there. I'd love to make it down there at some point.
Yeah, no, it's lovely.
Yeah. It's just people meme about it all the time and say that there's too many deadly creatures down there and that kind of thing. But I think that's just mostly coming out of ignorance. Anyway, enough of that aside. So let's talk about your RuneScape career. So we're gonna get in just a moment to what compelled you to want to hate yourself so much to do a Tirannwn only account, but on top of that, an Ultimate Iron Man. So let's back up before Tirannwn only here, and let's talk about what you did before Tirannwn only. So when did you find RuneScape, and what led you up to Tirannwn only?
Ooh, okay. So I started playing RuneScape probably about 10 to 12 years ago, like back in the OG 07 days.
Okay.
My old account actually is on RS3 now, so unfortunately I can't play that anymore. But it had about a 1400 total for the time, and I was like 10 years old, so I was pretty chuffed with that, like pretty happy. And then, kind of over the years, stopped playing EOC. I saw 07 come back as OSRS, wasn't too interested, and then I really got into the YouTube scene for it. Yeah, really got into the YouTube scene, really started wanting to watch the creators and stuff like that, and then I ended up finding Settled, and I started watching a friend, like really got into them, and from there I kind of thought, you know what, stop watching it, maybe I'll get back into the game. And that kind of just is where it kicked off. I think I only got back into it about 2 years ago, and I was kind of on and off for ages. Like I'd play it for a month, and I'd burn out for a month and play it for a month. But since I've come back with this new restriction and with this new account, it's just I've been non-stop for the last couple of months now, and I haven't lost any motivation.
That is great to hear. A little bit later, we're obviously going to delve into Song of the Elves and how that's changed the trajectory of your account and what you have to look forward to, or maybe not so much. But
Not for a while.
So the accounts that you played before Tirannwn only, were you playing a normal account, or did you have an Iron Man or an Ultimate, or?
When I first came back into the game, I came in as a hardcore Iron Man. I really wasn't like I wanted a twist. I needed something to keep me going in the game.
Sure.
So yeah, I came back in as a hardcore and started playing that, and I think I got to about 1k total, kind of past that point where I'd locked my account, and I was like, no, this is what I'm going to stick to. About a month after that, I started to burn out pretty bad, so I ended up knocking the account down to a regular Iron so I could start exploring more content. Still wasn't doing it for me, so I dropped it back to a normal account.
Oh, wow.
And just started playing it like that, and I think I played it for about another month or two, and then burnt out completely. I figured the Iron Man scene wasn't for me. But I really enjoyed the aspect of the hardcore. Like I enjoyed the fear of the death. And then I found the Ultimate Iron Man. I figured, okay, well, at least this gives me some fear of death, but doesn't completely restrict me. Like I'm not constantly scared of everything and trying to get higher stats than I need. Like I can still play the game and have some restriction that keeps me entertained and keeps me going.
Okay, very interesting. I find that fascinating. The sort of de-evolution of your hardcore Iron Man leading up to Tirannwn only. So you started as a hardcore, then down to a regular, then to a normal account, and then you burn out, and then you decided to go to the opposite side of the spectrum and make like probably one of the craziest accounts that that old school RuneScape has seen in recent memory. So talk to us. What on earth compelled you to do a Tirannwn only Ultimate Iron Man of all things?
Oh, well, so I was planning to come back onto like the YouTube scene for a while. Like same thing. I've been trying to make it into YouTube for the last 5 to 6 years. Do it for a few months, burn out, try something else, burn out. And I'd seen the new Elven questline come up at the last Runefest. Got really keen for that and really excited. You know, I'm a big fan of Elves and just fantasy lore in general. And so I figured, okay, why not? Let's try and give this a shot. And it was at that time I started like theorizing. I was watching your content. I was watching Verf's content. And I started theorizing and planning. I got into the Unique Iron Man Reddit. And then Settled came out with Swampletics. At this point, I think I must have been at least 3 weeks into planning for Tirannwn. And he came out with that. And I was tossing up Tirannwn for such a long time because I didn't think there was going to be enough content. I thought it was just going to dry up and I wouldn't make it to Song of the Elves. So I swapped it to Fremnik only at like the last second.
Interesting.
I made a trailer. I made the account. I got to Fremi, and then a friend released his series. And that just made me backpedal like, a couple of days, and I decided, stuff it. We're going straight into Tirannwn. A lot of planning had gone out the window with that, just because I had dropped it all at the last second and then decided to jump back into it. And so it was a little scuffed to start off with, but the plan was there for quite a while. And I don't know, I was just very entertained by the new quest line by Elves, and I've always enjoyed that area, and it just seems so unexplored that I figured, why not jump into it?
Yeah, I mean, it's the perfect area for a Snowflake Iron Man. Now, having been doing this for close to 2 years now, people constantly approach me asking, if there are any area-restricted Iron Man that haven't been done yet. And at this stage that old school RuneScape is in, frankly, most of the areas, as of even 6 months ago, had really been done. Underground only. My counterpart, surface only, has been done, frankly. Not too successfully, might I mind you. Sorry, Kaloa, but it has been done. The Zeah only scene has been done. Desert only, Fremnik only, as you mentioned, Wilderness only. Mauritania only had been done with Swampletics and Prior. And it just seemed like everything had been done. But the one that kept coming up time and time again was a Tirannwn only account. And I kept saying, no one is going to be crazy enough to do that. Because as you say, there's not enough content, and everyone hates that place, and all the stupid agility traps everywhere. And lo and behold, here comes TurtleTale out of the woodwork with an Ultimate Iron Man, nonetheless. Which absolutely blew my mind. Because I figured a Snowflake Iron Man, especially area restricted, is already restricted enough. Just being area locked. But to be an Ultimate Iron Man on top of that is just unbelievable.
Yeah, I'd had the ultimate, like I had a main Ultimate Iron Man. I still do. I mean, I play him on and off every now and again. And I think I hit the Barrows grind on that account finally, and same thing, started to burn out once again. But like thoroughly enjoyed the Ultimate Iron Man game mode. And honestly, I ended up playing Deadman mode for one of the seasons.
Hmm.
And I think I'd been playing Ultimate that long that I was playing Deadman and I wasn't using the bank. And
Oh
I
wow.
died to a PvPer and lost everything.
Oh
And
yikes.
like that really put me off not only Deadman but RuneScape. I just was bummed out after sinking a few days into that. But I think I just become so used to the idea of Ultimate that it just had to transfer over with the account. And knowing I wouldn't have access to a bank for at least a couple of hours or a couple of days worth of playing made more sense to just go Ultimate anyway. Because if I was going to do without it for some time, might as well do without it for the whole time, make it more exciting.
Yeah, well, hey, props to you, man. It is very masochistic of you, but I think that's part of the reason it's been so successful is because, I mean, I have been doing this for 2 years, and I frankly could not imagine doing what you were doing, honestly. It's an inspiration, and I'm glad that you're doing it and not me. So, so you talked about this Fremennik only idea that you had leading up to Tirannwn only. So, but then you decided to throw that out when you saw a friend start his series. We won't go into how that's gone. But what kind of planning went into Tirannwn only before you started? So obviously Song of the Elves, the announcement at RuneFest kind of sparked the idea. So what were the kind of exceptions and prerequisites to get this account off the ground? What kind of planning went into this?
So they hadn't really announced like any prereqs for Song of the Elves at this point, so I kind of just figured let's not include it until a later date. And so I basically went straight into what I needed to get into Tirannwn and at like the lowest level possible. And I'd seen a lot of, well, actually, I think like 2 or 3 Reddit posts pop up on the Unique Iron Man subreddit about people proposing for this Tirannwn account. And I'd been like, going for probably about 2 to 3 weeks at this point, studying it, trying to understand how I could get through the underground pass, because it's always famed as, you need a high HP, there's hard bosses, and it's just a lot of training,
Right.
a lot of hardcores die in there, etc., etc. I ended up finding this video. I don't know where I found it, but it was just this guy that was able to body block the main spider in the underground pass, Kalrag. And so I figured, okay, that's combat stats sorted, and if I knew I could safe spot it and body block it with another account, then it would allow me to get there at a low level. So that was pretty much, Plague City, Biohazard, Underground Pass, and then the half of Regicide to actually access Tirannwn. Just needed those minimum stats. Combat stats weren't an issue. Druidic Ritual was one for Herblore, and I should have done Rune Mysteries and bought myself a house at the time. But because Song of the Elves wasn't announced, well, any prereqs or any inclusions of Prifddinas weren't announced, I didn't think I'd be able to train them, so I didn't see the point in it anyway. But now, I'm kind of backing up and I'm like, oh, I need these requirements. Oh, I need these prerequisites.
Right. Okay, fair play. So, out of curiosity, what agility level did you do the underground pass with?
I did it at 56 agility because I knew that was the minimum you needed for Regicide. So I just figured get that and that'll do me.
Sure, that makes sense. Yeah, so obviously the bulk of what I'd like to talk about today is Song of the Elves and how that has affected your account's trajectory. So you mentioned that you had to kind of backtrack and purchase a POH because there's now a construction requirement for Song of the Elves. We're not going to get there quite yet, though, but because I want to cover a few things first. So we're going to hold that off to the very end. So let's dive into the account itself now. So first of all, how long have you been playing the account now, roughly?
So what is it? It's March. First video went up just under 2 months ago. So I would have started the account probably 2 weeks before that. So let's say about 2 months and 2 weeks in total. I haven't actually been to Hans and like sussed out my actual game time, but yeah, just about 2.5 months.
Okay, and still going strong. Very nice. So
yeah,
tell me, in these 2.5 months, what is the longest grind that you have endured so far?
Well, the longest grind so far would probably be, it's actually my next episode, is the 50 thieving grind. So so many people are like, oh, you can't train thieving in this area and you need it for Morning's End Part 1. Like, you're just going to make an exception. I ended up finding a method at about 2k XP an hour.
Really?
So that, yeah. So that took me about 50 hours to get, and I only ticked over like just the other day. So it was pretty fulfilling to get that.
Is that something that you can give details on now, or would that be a spoiler for the video?
No, I'll give the details on it. Video should be out pretty much straight after this, so go check it out. It's in the goblin cages in the underground pass, where you have to dig with your spade to get into the... It's just at the very beginning of the pass. Each of those cages in there have a picklock door, and that door gives 3 experience per pass.
Oh,
so
that sounds
standing
brutal.
there, clicking that door. Yeah.
Wow, that sounds absolutely brutal. But hey, that's better than no thieving training method.
Exactly. Better than making the exception.
Yeah. Okay. Very nice. So 50 thieving has been the craziest grind so far.
Yep.
Well, hey, I think that's just a little harbinger of things to come for you. Um,
Yeah, pretty much.
so now let's talk about future grinds. So what will be the most difficult grind or hurdle for you to overcome on this account, do you think?
So many people have, and so many people assume the agility grind is going to be the biggest grind.
That would
I
be my
estimated
assumption.
that would, yeah, that estimated was like 530 hours or something, like 22 days of in-game clicking.
Hmm.
And look, it's going to take forever. But honestly, I know that I can AFK it, and knowing that I can do that means I'm happy to sit here day in and day out and just keep clicking the screen, and I can take breaks and I can come back to it. Smithing, I think, is going to be the craziest for me because I
Really?
haven't
Okay.
allowed access to a furnace. Oh, sorry, I haven't allowed access to an anvil.
Hmm.
So I'm just training it with the ore drops that I get, but all the ore drops are uncommon to rare, and it's just making bronze and iron bars from level 1 to level 70. Like, I can't estimate how
Wow.
much time that's going to take. So I don't want to have to make an exception, but it's seeming more and more like I will have to make some sort of exception, even if it's just for an anvil.
Hmm.
But at least I can progress one of the skills, agility, like slowly, but I can still do it, as opposed to smithing and even the hunter, like random XP lamps. It's something I really have to wait for, and I have to wait for the drops in order to train it. And so I don't.
Sure.
I'd rather know that I can grind it out over time than have an unestimated amount of time of how long it's going to take.
Sure. Okay, let's stay with the smithing grind for a moment. So how many hours are we talking for you to get 70 smithing for Song of the Elves?
Oh, like I said,
Approximately.
it's approximately, I'd say, probably as long as the farming grind, so over 1,000 hours at this rate.
Wow.
Um,
That's
yeah, over a
that is
thousand
quite the
hours.
grind, my friend.
Yeah, so each of the like I have to kill zombies to get copper and tin ore. I did find out from someone in my Discord the other day that the two different level zombies drop the two different ores, so that's quite handy. So I know what I have to do to farm them. But then skeletons, for example, like their drop tables are so odd and so vast, and then I have to rely on getting a single drop from them. It's just, yeah, I estimate 1,000 hours, but it could take way more, could take way less. It's completely unknown to me.
Interesting. Okay, now in terms of, you mentioned a moment ago, potentially making an exception to train smithing. Do you
Yep.
have any idea in your mind what that would look like?
Yeah, so it was something I tossed up even when making the account, which was the access to West Arty, or like, the plague area in Arty.
Sure.
Um, because it does have an anvil, and
Hmm.
for early on, it had a general store that had bow and arrows, just so you could access the underground pass. It had a spade. It had a lot of stuff I was waiting for roving elves to unlock.
Hmm.
And so a lot of people had told me, go do it. It even had a thieving training method with the men that I could pickpocket. So it worked out, but I really wasn't a fan of it. And so if I was to make an exception down the line, I think I might lock it behind something like Morning's End Part 2. Like I complete the storyline as to where I can, and then say, okay, now I can access that area. But it's all something I'd probably have to suss out and figure out when it comes to it, as I can't predict it at the moment. I'm just trying to get the easier grinds out the way and try and plan it as best as I can.
Okay, I see. Now, on the topic of questing for a moment, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe, as you said earlier, that you've only done a partial completion of Regicide, right?
That was to start the account, yes. But I think in episode 4, when I did Roving Elves, I ended up finishing Regicide. But I made sure that because I didn't need any of the requirements for Regicide, I just had to get through the underground pass and kill the
Right.
Tyrus Guard, and then I had access to Tirannwn.
Mhm.
But after that, I needed the mining skill, I needed a few other bits and pieces, and so I made sure I got those skills within my area to try and make it feel as legitimate as possible when I went out to finish the quest off.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. Now, what about the Mornings in Part 1 and 2? Have you done those yet?
I have not done those yet on the account. I've actually never done them before.
Interesting. Okay, yeah.
Uh,
Morning's End Part
yeah,
2 is quite a bear, but I think
that's
that
from
Song
what
of
I've
the
heard.
Elves will prove to be a bit more. So, where are those quests going to fall in line in terms of your account progression?
I'd originally planned it, and I was saying back in one of the other videos when I was talking about the Song of the Elves and my plan for it, that I was going to do all of the prerequisite quests for Song of the Elves, including Morning's End 1 and 2,
Mhm.
just before I was ready to complete Song of the Elves. Like, I'd get all of the level 70 stats I needed, and then I would go and complete those prerequisites, because I didn't want to take advantage of the XP rewards from those.
Okay, that's fair.
But it's looking more and more likely that I might try and complete those quests a bit sooner rather than later. Like I get some agility experience from one of them. I think I get some thieving experience. Like there's just bits and pieces that would cut the grinds down, especially in terms of completing Fairy Tale Part 1 and 2 and the farming experience I get from that. That could speed up the grind quite a bit. But in saying that, it's, it comes down to that same toss-up of legitimacy of the account. And I know for a large portion of my fan base, they say, just go for it. We're not too fast. But for me, I want to be able to tell myself I got it on my own. Like I didn't do the quests for it. So it's a hard toss-up in my mind. But
yeah, absolutely. That's actually kind of a recurring theme throughout these podcasts I've noticed with all of my guests, that you always have to think of the consideration of the community and what role they play in your account. And as you've just stated, I've seen you post those polls on your YouTube channel and asking your viewers whether you should do X, Y, or Z. And as you've noticed, pretty much everyone, or at least a super majority of people, generally vote yes for you to do more content. And as you just said, you have to be, you as the account owner have to be the sole proprietor of maintaining the integrity and difficulty of what you're doing. Because although, we love the viewers and we love your support and we appreciate you, it's generally viewers don't vote out of the best interest of the longevity of the account. So you have to keep that in mind yourself.
Yeah, I did see a comment on one of my most recent polls, and it was probably like the truest comment I've seen in a long time. And it was a guy that was saying, I probably know what is best for the audience and best for my account better than anyone else does. Mm-hmm. But for my peace of mind, I always feel like I need to poll it. I always need to check it. And I said that from the get-go, and I think I'll continue to stick to that. But for the most part, I think most people will always vote yes for that content and for that, that need for account progression. But it still comes back to me knowing, like, I want to do it my way, but my way isn't always the best way.
Sure. And I mean, when you think about it, that's honestly just kind of a microcosm of the game as a whole, that's what our polling system is that, honestly, the devs, without the polling system, could probably do just fine without our input. But they put the polls out to humor us, and they generally poll things, I would say most of the time, that they think are going to pass anyway. And so, although they could probably do without our say, it's like they poll us just to kind of humor us and to make us feel involved.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's good. So to keep your audience involved and engaged with what you're doing, but at the end of the day, you get the final say. I think that's important.
Yeah, no, I am looking forward to polling more stuff later on. I've got a few things that I want to double check, and it's more of a touch base and just be like, hey, if I was to do this, would you guys be okay with it? So I think, for the most part, it would always be a yes, we're cool with it. But one day I feel like if I don't check it, people aren't going to be okay with it. And since I've started this trend now of checking things, if I don't double check or if I don't put up those polls, I feel like there is a potential for a kickback after that.
Yeah, I mean that's absolutely fair, and again, that's your call too. At the end of the day, it's your account and it's your community. So at the end of the day, you get to make both of those decisions. So I think that you'll make whatever the best decision is for you going forward. Let's move into the next topic here. One of my favorite topics to discuss with any Snowflake Iron Man, and that is the topic of dead content. Personally, I have not been to the Elven lands in probably 5 years. I know most people probably don't spend too much time over there. Obviously, people do Zulrah, but that's a pretty isolated thing. But aside from doing the Elven quests, there's not any good reason for people to go there for the most part. So, in all of the Elven lands, what is the most obscure piece of content that you have found?
It's gonna sound pretty odd. Like I've ventured, the whole lands. I know them like the back of my hand now. I know every trap. I know every corner, every path. But the thing that still keeps coming back to me is the furnace in the Tyrus camp. And I know like not many people knew about it in the first place. But wait,
hold on, back up. There's a what? There's a furnace.
Yep, there's a furnace in the Tyrus camp, just up from the port. Yep.
Honestly, I did not know that. I'm gonna look this up right now because I'm honestly in disbelief. Because, I never go there, but yeah, there's a furnace icon in the Tyrus camp. Wow, my mind is honestly blown.
And I was like, it makes sense because there's a charter ship down there, and so it could be a glass blowing running location, which is what I use it for.
Okay.
But it's a different model. It's a small furnace, like brown furnace, and I don't think I've really seen it anywhere else in the game.
Uh-huh.
But it's there, so I take it where I can get it.
Wow. Okay. This is one of the things that I just absolutely love about Snowflake accounts is that no matter how long you've been playing this game, you always are learning new things constantly, and that's coming from an underground Iron Man.
Yeah,
It, it's
100%.
it's just it's unbelievable. Wow. Okay. So today I learned there's a furnace in the Tyrus camp. That's pretty wild. Now, here's another thing, too, that I know that you've been struggling with lately on your account, and that is drop tables on the wiki.
Yep.
So let's talk a little bit about that. So what have you accidentally discovered, if anything, that has been undocumented on the official RuneScape wiki?
So I was killing Tyrus guards just the other day, and they dropped I put it down to an uncommon or rare drop, but it was 5 death runes. And I didn't think it was going to be possible to get death runes in my area, so this is like a massive drop for the account, as I can probably use Iban's Blast, and I can use that for Zora. Like, it works really well for me. But I was killing them with the intentions of getting green D'hide Vambraces, because they were supposedly the only mob in the area that could drop it. And I found out they don't actually drop those at all. And also listed on the wiki is a full table of cleaned herbs that they also don't drop.
Oh, that sounds a little detrimental. Is that one of your like main ways to gather herbs, or do you have alternatives?
I have alternatives. I'll probably use the zombies in the underground pass, but it was just a bit of a check on the wiki and like understanding that, trying to wrap my head around that the drop tables I'd planned the account around might not be correct. And a few comments in the on the latest video had said that the drop table for the Tyrus guards on both the fan base wiki and the official wiki are probably copied over from RS3, seeing as they're the exact same. And the guards
Yeah.
do drop it in RS3, but they don't drop it in old school.
Very interesting. Well, there's been a bit of a trend, we'll say, recently of things happening around the game with game updates that happen to benefit various area restricted Iron Man lately. For example, the teasing stick spawn on the shores of Karamja to help out the Karamja folks, and the mysterious small fishing net spawn in Mauritania to help out the Mauritania folks. So who knows? Maybe one of these days your green D'hide Vambraces will mysteriously appear on the Tyrus Guard drop table there.
Or maybe I'd much rather a harpoon. That could help me a lot more. So if anyone's listening, maybe that could mysteriously appear on the shore.
That was actually going to be another question. That's actually a great segue. So the harpoon would be a small, trivial item that could be added to the Elven lands. How would that help you?
It would allow me to fish sharks up in like the northern part of the camp, so I could actually use those as food for Zora. So at the moment, I can train my fishing to that level, but I have no way to catch them. So even if it was like a part of the charter ship shop, because they have fishing rods and lobster pots and stuff, but they don't have harpoons, and I have no way. I've checked all drop tables, like it's not possible.
So what's your alternative if you don't have access to sharks?
Probably lobsters in the end. I can buy lobsters from the general store in Lita, but that maybe pizzas. I haven't sussed out if I can make any yet, but that might just be what I can get.
Well, hey, you never know. Might have to send out a little covert tweet to Mod Ash on Twitter and see what we can make happen for you. But what's your favorite piece of dead content that you hadn't really explored before on any other account?
So far, like, I'm honestly just enjoying the storyline of the elves. Like, I'm really getting into the lore of it all. I watched a lot of videos on the lore when I started making the account, just so if I ever wanted to incorporate it into the video, I, knew what it was about. But since then, and since actually completing these quests and following it along, I'm actually really getting into the storyline of it all, and so I'm even more excited for Song of the Elves, just because of that story and because of that new story that's getting introduced. Like, all the content's going to be fantastic, but I really want to see what becomes of this storyline. And, it gets pretty crazy and pretty out there for a while, so I want to see it resolved differently to how it was resolved in RS3, I guess.
Yeah, and I honestly really look forward to seeing how you manage to incorporate some of that storyline in your videos. But I think that's one of the factors that has made your YouTube channel so successful as of late, is just the narrative nature of your videos. It's not just a compilation of levels and clips and quests and drops, but it's narrative, and it's a bit cinematic too, and it's very well done. And we'll get into that a little bit later. what I want to talk about now is, I believe, what I want to know the most about, and I believe everyone listening at home wants to know about as well. That is talking about Song of the Elves as much as we can pack in here. So my first question is, how did Song of the Elves, and knowing what the prerequisite requirements are for the quest when those were released, how has that changed the trajectory of Tirannwn only?
So I made Tirannwn only, I had made it knowing Song of the Elves was coming out, but not
Right.
knowing the exact date and not knowing the requirements. So I had made Zulrah my end goal, and I was slowly working my way up. I was skilling, and I was just taking my time training my combat stats, just trying to make it fit in where I can. And since these prerequisites have been released and this, this level requirement that you can't even boost for has come into the game, it's pushed my timeline up massively because now they've announced it's coming out in summer, which is, winter for me. So that's 3 to 6 months at the most. And so my timeline originally I thought was going to be by the end of the year or around October. I thought they were going to release it at RuneFest or just before or just after. So I thought, okay, I've got plenty of time to get myself to Zulrah and start training my stats that I didn't think were going to be as high as they need to be. And especially stats like smithing, for example, I didn't think was going to be a requirement.
Sure.
So it's kind of compressed my timeline down from 9 months and kind of mulling my way there to 6 months at the most and trying to get it all done as quickly as I can, but also, try and develop a decent amount of content and not just be sitting in a dark brown room clicking a pipe for 20 hours.
Yeah, that's one of the challenges about being a Snowflake content creator is, as a content creator, we know this, but most of what you see, either in the form of progress logs or videos or tweets, that kind of thing, all of that stuff is just a highlight reel, folks. What you don't see is all of the behind-the-scenes, monotonous, tedious grinds. And you might see little clips here and there in a video or a progress log, but just the hours and hours of monotonous grinds is something that you just don't see. And for you, I imagine it must be pretty bittersweet to know that you're like finally in the meaty part of the account, and that you have a trajectory and you have a clear end goal, Song of the Elves now, as well as Zulrah, and you have a path to get there. Now you just have to get there.
Yeah, it's very hard knowing what I have to do. Like, it's very rewarding knowing that I finally have that goal to reach towards, but also knowing the sheer amount of grind and experience required for it is killing me. And being new to content creating, when I first started making the videos, I tried to include some of those grinds because in my first two, I had cut a lot of grinding out, and people had started to say, okay, maybe start including some more grinding. And then the next few episodes I did, and people were like, no, we don't like this anymore, go back to the old way. And it was kind of tossing up how to please people. And now I've had a few people asking after my last two videos, are you even playing RuneScape? Like, what are you grinding out at the moment? And I've tried to keep it a secret. I was working away at that 50-hour thieving grind, but that's the same thing. Like, I'm going to montage it into a minute, but it took me 50 hours originally.
Yep. Welcome. Yeah. Welcome to the Snowflake content creator lifestyle, my friend. That's how it goes. And
it was very hard.
Yeah, it's hell, I wish I had some advice for you, but but that's just the nature of the beast. I think though the thing that's been most revolutionary just for content creation in general is Settled and what he has done with his series with Swampletics. Is that previously, as when I started as a content creator almost 2 years ago, I was under the impression that progress videos had to be full of levels and content and big drops and bossing. And I would play, for 2 to 3 weeks. And then after X amount of time had elapsed, I would compile all the clips chronologically and then smash them out into a video. But he's proven that you can literally make an incredible video just training 1 to 15 agility. And it's changed the whole game. That it's not only about the content, but it's about the delivery. And so if I had any advice for anybody trying to make it into the content creation scene for really anything, but of course in the context of RuneScape, it's all about the delivery, folks. And that's something that I constantly strive to make better with my videos. I would be lying if I said that once Settled came out with Swampletics and kind of changed the meta for the progress video trope, I stepped up my game and tried to change a few things and make it as good as can be. And I think that you're following in that same vein as well. So keep it up, man.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's something I think I finally got a grasp on. But you're 100% right on how we just kind of changed the game of progress videos. I think just videos in general. Like I remember watching one of Torvesta's most recent videos about the Black Knight's PK or something, and a few people
Yep,
might know.
I've seen that.
You know, yeah, and that introductory scene where he was, just panning around the Black Knight's fortress and kind of set up a story for the video. Although it was, it was a bit out there. It was a bit of a laugh, but it kind of changed from what he was used to doing. He just put on some gear, so introduction, and then get straight into PKing. It was a nice little prelude that kind of made the video a bit more entertaining.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Snowflakes are absolutely changing the game. It used to be this, no pun intended, but kind of underground community that was very niche and no one really knew or cared about. And now, I mean, there are some titans starting to appear, and it's not just those of us who play exclusively Snowflake accounts, but including some big content creators as well. Sea Engineer has started his PvP World Hardcore Iron Man. Bodhi even is playing. I don't know exactly what he calls it, but basically it's like a vanilla hardcore Iron Man where he can't interact with any content past, I think, 2007. Or perhaps maybe it's 2013, like vanilla old school RuneScape type thing. But it is catching on, and it's incredible. Let's loop back to Song of the Elves now. So, for those listening at home who might not know the Song of the Elves prerequisite requirements as well as you do, tell us what the requirements are for the new quest coming up.
So the requirements are 70 agility, 70 construction, 70 farming, 70 herb lore, 70 hunter, 70 mining, 70 smithing, 70 woodcutting, as long as Morning's End Part 1, Making History, and Fairy Tale Part 2, along with like all their prerequisites, of course.
Right. That's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Were you thinking that these requirements were going to be as vast as they were going into this?
I didn't think, I'd spoken with a lot of people, and they had said, it's a new Grandmaster quest, and looking at the two most recent Grandmaster quests, or the only two, I should say, Monkey Madness 2 and Dragon Slayer 2, I knew the requirements were going to be quite high, but I didn't think, they were going to be as vast. I thought, maybe only 4 requirements and maybe a couple of quests tossed in there, because the Elven quests haven't really had high requirements before. Agility's been a big one, right. Thieving, and they haven't really had much else to go on before, and so I figured it might just continue in that same vein, especially locking such a big piece of content like Prifddinas. I thought, okay, it might be a bit more accessible, and for a regular account, base 70s isn't a massive achievement. It's mid-game, so a lot of people can get there and can reach it and complete those quests. But for my account, it's a whole different game, and I really wasn't expecting it. Kind of, hit me out of the blue.
Yeah, I mean, base 70 requirements, again, as you said, that's a walk in the park for a normal account. But honestly, for any, especially area-locked account, a 70 stat is no joke, especially training some of these skills at the experience rates that we train them. So talk to me, what skill are you looking forward to training the least? Is that smithing that we spoke about earlier?
Yeah, it's a toss-up between smithing and agility. Smithing, I know, will be the hardest.
Sure. I know we touched on agility earlier. What is your agility training method?
So there's a pipe in the underground pass that leads you in between the unicorn rooms for anyone that's done the quest. And that pipe, just traveling through it, gives 3 experience of travel. But it takes at least, I reckon, about 5 seconds for you to travel through the pipe and back. And I have to adjust my camera in this certain point so I can keep clicking it and not have to, keep turning the camera and keep adjusting for the pipe. So to finally get into that position with the camera and then start clicking the pipe, it gets me about 1k XP an hour at most.
Yikes. That is rough, man. I just finished about 60 hours of clicking on the Edgeville monkey bars. And honestly, I wanted to alk myself. But for you to have to do... Yeah, exactly. It makes me feel lucky. Which is funny because, people said that watching me train on Edgeville monkey bars made them feel lucky about, grinding their Sears rooftop course or whatever normal people do for agility. But wow, how many hours is that to 70, did you say?
About 530, because I think it's about 730k experience, so that's kind of where my math's taken me.
Wow. Well, may Saren be with you, because I think that you will need the elven gods on your side for that one, dude. Wow.
Gonna need it for sure.
Okay, let's talk about the proposed quest rewards from Song of the Elves. So obviously we have the crystal armor, the whole city of Prifddinas, the crystal tools as well, some new proposed trees and a player-owned house portal in the new city. So what are your thoughts on the quest rewards to come?
I'm actually a pretty big fan of some of the rewards proposed, and I know a lot of people are. One thing I always stressed when it was getting polled and a lot of people were asking me my opinions on it was I wanted it to be healthy for the game in general. I wanted it to benefit the game and the longevity of it and the new content being introduced, as opposed to, just my account, because any new content was always going to benefit me. But in terms of the gear and the new upgrades and whatnot for my account, the crystal armor is going to be the best thing I'm going to see for a long time, if ever. So I'm really excited to get that. The crystal sword that might be introduced in the next poll could be my new best melee weapon. The new construction method with the mahogany and the teak trees running into the sawmill, running to the player-owned house could possibly be
that's going to be
best.
huge.
Yeah, could be the best new method for Ultimate Iron Man in general, and then my account on top of that. There's a lot of things like the gauntlet, for example. I'm really, really excited for. I was a big fan of Dungeoneering when it first came out. So to have some solo content that I don't have to group up with and I can just go into on my own and just, keep trying it. I'm really excited for it. Especially, I haven't really done raids or anything like that before, but the aspect of building up your own gear and farming your own stuff within the raid and then moving into the actual fights, I really like the idea of. So I'm keen for a lot of that. And then Zolcano as well, the new, I think it's the mining boss, or mining tot was what people were calling it pre-Song of the Elf announcement. Is going to give me smithing, rune crafting, and mining experience. So absolutely massive for the account. Seeing smithing,
that's quite nice for you, isn't it?
Yeah, rune crafting is impossible to train. And then maybe if I keep my death talisman down the line, I can use that, and I can use essence from Zora and go make death runes. It just the amount of content.
Wow, that would honestly be insane for your account. I would, obviously, as an Ultimate Iron Man, you're at more of a disadvantage, of course, with your inventory. So holding onto that talisman in the inventory there could be quite burdensome. But I think that would be absolutely sick for you to hold on to that, train up some rune crafting, even though it's said that it's not really supposed to be a training method, this new Zolcano or whatever it's called.
Yeah,
but I think that'd be absolutely sick to see you craft some death runes on your account eventually.
Yeah, I think it would be very cool, and like I said, it'll allow me to keep going back to Zora and keep training magic, because magic training is always, I think, going to be one of the biggest locks of the account. There's supposedly a new rune shop getting introduced, so that could be cool, but even then, like later game training, I can just splash with death runes if I can just use all my essence, and my goal is to eventually max what I can. If I plan to stick with the account for that long. Slayer, unfortunately, is like the only thing I can't train, so it's a bit rough, but the new content opens up so much for the account, and I haven't even scratched the surface of it all yet, and it all hasn't been introduced and planned out, so I'm just super excited to actually be able to get my hands on it.
Yeah, I'm just taking a look here at the proposed Prifddinas map, and honestly, it's just so exciting for you. We've got, it looks like some type of sword and armor shop as well that could potentially be useful to maybe fill gaps before you have access to the crystal armor. Markers for rare trees that could be like you or magic trees, the sawmill, a farming patch that looks like it's an allotment maybe, so another actually that would be your first herb patch, wouldn't it? Well, actually they talked about not adding that, didn't they?
Yep, so it'll probably be an allotment patch.
Yeah, I guess that's a bit unfortunate for you not getting the herb patch there, but
yeah, I can make do, I guess.
But yeah, honestly, the whole city just looks packed full of content, so very, very exciting for you.
Yeah, I'm very keen for it. And I think I see, there's an agility shortcut in there as well. So I'm not sure if that's a new rooftop method or if it's a new course, but could be very exciting, better than 1k XP an hour.
I'm sure that would be much welcomed after grinding 500 plus hours of that stupid pipe shortcut.
Oh god, yeah.
Are there any rewards that you would like to see added to what they have proposed that you perhaps thought of on your own, or you maybe saw a player suggestion somewhere online? Is there anything that you'd like to see added that they haven't really talked about in detail yet?
One thing, maybe not necessarily for my account, but I think just the game in general. I know they're talking about warding later down the line and new magic armors and stuff like that, but I feel like there's such a big disparity between magic armor tier. Like you get, your basic melee tiers, and then you work your way up your basic range tiers. Like there's always something that you can progress to. But yeah, I always see such a big disparity between ARAMs and then Ancestrals. So I'd like something to just go in between. And I feel, the theme of the Elves is, ranged and, bow and arrows and stuff, but it's also meant to be this magical city. So the introduction of some new mage gear or something along those lines, I think could be quite cool.
Yeah, I can see that. And again, as you said, kind of depends on, I think, the direction that warding takes in the next few months, probably, sometime towards the end of this year. But yeah, that would probably be quite nice for you, especially if you're trying to grind out Zulrah long term. What does your mage gear even look like?
Yeah, at the moment it's consisting of a blue wizard robe top and a blue wizard hat. Until I
Wow.
can, get dragon implings, but that's pretty impossible in my timeline that I have.
That is pretty tragic.
Yeah, that's it's been one
Wow.
of the biggest issues I've been facing. I've actually been practicing Zora, and I've never actually really done Zora before on another account.
Mhm.
But I've been practicing on unrestricted worlds. I've got the basic rotations, the basic reactions to new rotations down. But every time I go in with my proposed stats and my proposed gear, I either kill it in about 8 minutes, or I just
Wow.
don't do it at all. And that's still killing it with like an anti venom and some sharks, like there's still the best food and the best pots and stuff that I can have, which I still won't have access to. So yeah, it's pretty demotivating, and I'm hoping I can try and weasel my way around and fix it. But some new mage armor could be huge.
Hopefully, the addition of Song of the Elves will also help fuel your Zulrah grind going forward, and then perhaps Song of the Elves and Prifddinas will help you gear for Zulrah, and then you could use the pipe and that kind of thing from Zulrah and the Serpalm to perhaps fuel your adventures in the Gauntlet.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm hoping it kind of all comes into its own. Like I know Zora's resources are going to help me train down the line as well. So hopefully I can just kind of keep a nice cycle between the two big pieces of content.
Sure, sure. Here's a viewer question from Liam on YouTube. He says, "You don't make many exceptions, which I find admirable. I do as well, by the way. But
Thank you.
But are you worried that the immense grind for Song of the Elves will mean that you're not doing content when it's quote unquote hot or appeals to the audience, so to speak? In other words, Song of the Elves is coming out in a couple of months. But as we
Yep.
spoke about in detail earlier, it's going to take you more than a couple of months to get ready for the quest. Is that something that you find worrisome, or do you still think that you'll be able to hold an audience and hold engagement, both for yourself and for your viewers, by the time you get ready for Song of the Elves?
Yeah, so I know the account has taken off a lot because of the Song of the Elves coming out and that proposed, new piece of content. And I'm not so fussed about doing it right as it drops. Like I would love to, but I just know it's not feasible unless I make exceptions. But if I could push it to my proposed timeline to October or so, maybe just a month or two after, I'd be more than happy with that, or even a couple of months later. But if it's getting closer to the end of the year, then I'm definitely going to start reassessing exceptions and assessing the account just for that content and for me. Like I want to, please the audience and actually provide what everyone has come to this series for. And, I want to be one of the leading discoverers or, kind of explorers of this new city and all of this new piece of content, like this entire new piece of content. So I'm definitely worried about it. But at the rate I'm going, I'm pretty keen that I can get a lot of it done. I know it's gonna, just the timeline is looking a bit rough, but I know I'm gonna be able to start sinking a lot of time into it once I get some time freed up, and I'm just gonna try and make it work as best as I can, just so I can deliver that content versus legitimacy of the account.
Yeah, it is a steep trade-off, and
Yeah.
anyone familiar with my series, hopefully you are if you're listening to this to some extent.
I hope so.
But yeah, I've fought those same battles, man. About initially, we're talking probably a year and a half ago on my account. I had it in my rules that I was going to make a one-off exception to make myself a rune crossbow by killing a bear behind the Rock Palace to get bear meat,
Yep.
making sinew, and then going upstairs in the Lumbridge Castle from the Lumbridge basement to the spinning wheel to make a crossbow string so I could make a rune crossbow. Then I discovered
You
that the
push that
crossbow
back.
string, yeah. Then I discovered that the crossbow string was on the Smoke Devil drop table, and I decided to change everything. And it was very tough. It was very tough. I had to do approximately 1,300 hours of Slayer alone just to be able to get to level 93. And I just did that just a couple weeks ago. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen the latest progress video. But it's tough. It's tough to balance the pacing of the account as well as engagement of the content with your audience. But I think you've done a great job so far, and I think that no matter
Thank you.
what, you'll find a way to do that going forward.
Yeah, here's hoping. Like I said, I'm going to keep reassessing it probably at the end of every month, see where I'm at. But I think I'll try and find that balance. Like you said, I've pretty much done it so far. Or like I'm getting there slowly, so hopefully I'll kind of find that in time.
Yeah, and for anyone out there listening who's interested in creating a Snowflake Iron Man of any variety, especially if you're trying to become a content creator, that's one of the big trade-offs is the Snowflake grind versus content production. And it's very, very hard to find a balance in terms of producing regular, exciting, engaging content and also not wanting to out yourself due to some of the grinds that you have to endure on any Snowflake account, you know. So just know what you're getting into, that it's a lot, and especially, you know, the early game is great. Whenever you play a brand new account, especially a Snowflake, you've got the rose-colored lenses on, and everything is great and dandy and brand new for you and for the viewers at home. But once you get into the meat of the mid-game of RuneScape, just the nature of the game, it is very, very grindy. And you know, I think only the most ardent and steadfast and disciplined folks and gamers make it through. But I definitely think that you have what it takes. So I'm really looking forward to seeing where you go with this. And I think Song of the Elves on your account is going to be absolutely incredible.
Oh, thank you very much.
What's the most rewarding element of playing a unique Iron Man to you?
It's I know a lot of people would say, you know, it's completing those grinds, those tough grinds that, you know, are tough on a normal account and then it's tougher on a Snowflake. And so completing those and achieving it and overcoming that goal is like monumental and it's very achieving. But just throwing it back real quick, you know, being a new Snowflake and being a new creator, I feel like it's a double-edged sword in a sense. Like, you know, for me, creating is the reason to stick to my restriction and to keep pumping out this account. But also creating is what's stopping me from going off and just being like, oh, I don't want to touch the account anymore, you know? And it's not like I've had any of those thoughts, but I know it'll come to a point, even through some of the tougher grinds, that it gets like that. But one of the things that I've found that keeps me going and is probably one of the most motivational aspects of playing a Snowflake is seeing people comment in the section, and especially on my last Song of the Elves, like proposition video where I talked about all these grinds. People would sit there and they'd say, oh, it's not going to happen, or you're not going to get it done, or you're going to give up. And seeing those comments, at first I was like, oh, this bums me out. Yeah, I probably will give up. Like, you know, it is a lot. But thinking past that and thinking on into the future and, you know, how I'm going to make this all work, I just know that if I start overcoming those, it's going to be even more motivation. And I've seen a lot of people from some of my beginning videos saying when I first started, I was going to give up. And looking at myself where I am now and seeing I've overcome that, it's just more challenges to overcome and more people, you know, haters, I guess, to overcome, but also just the grind in itself. It's just very fulfilling to reach those goals and be able to share that with people as well. That's kind of what I found about playing a Snowflake account and being a creator.
That's a great answer, and more power to you, man. I think that's excellent that you take those comments. First of all, to have people commenting that and to have those haters, that means you're doing something right. So you're on the right track, because if to do anything worthwhile in life, you're gonna have haters, and that's a good thing. And I think that it's an even better thing that you're turning that into motivation and fueling the fire in terms of just getting these grinds done. And I can say without a doubt on my end that the payoff is so worth it. Because I just got to Chambers of Zarek myself after grinding for 2 years. It took me 3,000 hours to get a rune crossbow, to get ready for raids, and the payoff is so worth it. And so yeah, it's gonna be a long road ahead, but you will get there, and the payoff will certainly be worth it, both on the account and as a content creator too, I think.
He is hoping.
What achievement has given you the most elation so far? Could be an item, could be a stat, could be anything.
It's a toss-up between two for me, I think. I'll probably put it down to my woodcutting grind, my original grind, where I think I was going for 60 woodcutting to get to yew trees, and it took me about 10,500 regular logs, and I was fletching in between that. But at the time, I was away on holidays. I was like down the coast with a couple of friends, and I had made it my goal for that week. I was going to finish that woodcutting grind. But while I was away, I'd found I had a uni assignment due. And so it kind of came to this point where everyone's going out to the beach and everyone had a big night out. And I'm sitting there on my laptop typing away this 2,000-word essay and cutting trees in a clicking simulator. But to get home, like, yeah, I do. And I got home at the end of that week, and I think I had 2 days before I put my video deadline up. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to get in there. And I think I pulled an all-nighter, probably like 30 hours of playing to get it all done, to get the video edited and pushed out. And I was exhausted afterwards, and it burnt me for like a day or two. But to know that I finished it and to know I pushed through, and like I still thoroughly enjoyed the holiday and the time away. But it was when the channel was starting to take off too. So I was like, I got to stick to it. I got to give it to everyone, and I got to pump it out. So it was very tough, but man, it was rewarding.
Another great answer. I think that that's great. And it is so true, especially trying to commit as a content creator, trying to commit to an upload schedule is a sharp double-edged sword. Because on the one hand, you set expectations for viewers, and they can look forward to knowing when your videos are coming. And that can create hype, which is obviously great for drawing views and that kind of thing. On the other hand, on our side, holds our feet to the fire and puts a lot of pressure on. To meet deadlines in terms of skill grinds or whatever.
Funny thing is now that I'm actually on a woodcutting grind twice as big, so we'll see how that goes.
What's the goal for the new woodcutting grind now?
I need to get 60 fletching, so the only way I can do that is through regular trees. So to get there, I think I have about 20,000 longbows, so 20,000 logs. I think it's 150 or so thousand experience at about 5k an hour. So we're looking still at, I think, another 40 to 50 hours.
Oh man, it just keeps adding up, man. You got the 500 hours, you've got the 500 hours of agility, you have the 1,000 hours of farming, and the 1,000+ hours of smithing, and then it makes the fletching sound like a drop in the bucket. But
pretty much.
Man, well, I don't know. I'm just grateful to hear that your spirit is not broken, because I know that, especially watching your Song of the Elves video and just taking a gander at the comment section myself, seeing a lot of people like wishing you good well-being through the grinds, and like being concerned for your physical and mental health through the grinds.
It was lovely to see.
Yeah, it's lovely to see. But man, you've got a long road ahead, my friend. But I'm really happy to hear that you're staying positive about it, and that you're going to be dedicated enough to hopefully get this stuff done.
Yeah, hopefully I'll get there. But yeah, no, it was lovely to see everyone commenting and being like, oh, best of luck, but look after yourself. And I'm like, honestly, I'm not even slightly demotivated. At this point, after seeing those prereqs, I think I spent the better part of a day. I was editing a video and I was just bummed out. I was like, I'm not going to get it done. I'm not going to get into Prifddinas. But I woke up the next day, more motivation than I've ever had, and it hasn't stopped. I've just continued it through, and so hopefully that keeps up.
That's great. Now transitioning into talking more about content creation in the community, how has making videos fueled that motivation, if at all?
Yeah, like I was saying earlier, it was just that desire to get the videos out to everyone and seeing people receive it well. And I've been wanting to be a content creator. I've been trying YouTube, same thing, like on and off, 7 to 8 years now. Just new games, new styles of videos, just trying to find what works. And I finally hit it off with this series. And so I feel like I owe it both to the series, but both to the audience, like to the series, to the audience, and to myself to just pump it out and keep going. And I don't, I throw it back to those haters earlier. They're like, oh, you're not going to get it done. Just being able to share my content with people, see that people receive it, see that people thoroughly enjoy it, and then them wishing me well, but then the people being like, oh, it's not going to get done. Like, it's this collective of just pushing me up and pushing me to continue doing it and to just motivate me beyond what I could motivate myself.
Did you think, since you've mentioned several times that you were kind of on and off with YouTube for, 6, 7, 8 years, did you forecast this idea being the one that would take off for you on YouTube?
Not even close. No, I think I've tried RuneScape videos. I think I had 2 other series I tried to launch, and then just kind of, I either gave up on the account because I wasn't finding it entertaining enough, or I'd put too much effort into the series and I felt like it wasn't paying off. So trying this one was just another kind of Hail Mary. Let's see how it goes. But as I said, when I was planning for it, I also started to get real passionate about it. And then, like I said, I'd been watching your videos and Verfs, and then Swamplanetics came out, and it just all kind of added up to, I decided this time I was going to stick to it and I was going to make it work.
That's great. And I think the key there is that the passion came first, and that's what's allowing you to stick to it.
Yep.
I'm gonna ask you some questions here in a moment about just your thoughts on the growth of the community as a whole in the last half year or so. But I think an important note, especially with the saturation of content in this kind of niche Snowflake community lately, that the passion has to be there in order for it to succeed. Not even as a content creator, like content creation aside, for you to want to continue playing this account, you have to enjoy it. And so the absolute wrong thing to do is to try to make some stupid, crazy account that has crazy restrictions and rules, and you're just trying to carve your niche in something that hasn't been done before, but you're doing it for clicks or likes or views. Like that's not sustainable. What is sustainable?
Yeah, that's the wrong motivation.
Yeah. The sustaining factor is having the passion and the discipline and the motivation to stick through it, both for the account and for the content creation. So the passion has to come first, and then content creation can come after that. That's really cool. But on the topic of the community, do you have any thoughts on the growth of just the Snowflake Iron Man community in general over the last 6 months or so?
Oh, I'm loving it. I think for me, the biggest part of it is seeing so many players come back to the game, or seeing like so much more content. Like I said, I was into RuneScape content before I started getting back into the game, and so I'm still watching and trying to keep up with all the series that I can, and seeing the new creators come out of the woodworks and seeing them playing these new Snowflakes. But not only that, I head over to the subreddit and seeing so many people with these crazy ideas on variations on how to play. I don't even know how old RuneScape is, but just a ridiculously old game, and still bringing new life into it. And along with like the release of mobile, for example, bringing brand new players that have never played it before, but we still have the veterans hanging around playing their end game and farming money and whatnot, but they're still trying to search for new ways to play the game. And so by giving them the Snowflake experience, or the unique experience, it allows new players to come into the game, and for veterans to kind of join that trend of starting a new account and playing as a new player with their restrictions. And I think that kind of breathes more life into the game. But also this new community that's opened up is just insane. And some of the restrictions in some of the series, or just some of the accounts in general, I think are sensational. And I really want to see where they're going to take this game next. Like, I think it's a fantastic spin, and I think it's going to last a long time. But if this can be done now, it kind of leaves me wondering what can happen in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have any other favorite, like smaller, up-and-coming Snowflakes that you're keeping your eye on in particular?
Oh, at the moment, I'm a big fan of Ingus and his kind of storytelling Ultimate Iron Man, the pirate Ultimate Iron Man.
Yes. I would love to have him on the podcast.
Yes, I've seen him where like he was commenting on my videos when I was starting off small and stuff. I think before he'd started releasing, and he's on my Discord and we've chatted a bit. And he's a very lovely guy, but his video editing style and that style of story I think is very cool. And the same with UIM Avra, the Wilderness Ultimate Iron Man. Like, that is a brutal account, because if if they die, everything's gone. But that same storytelling aspect, I think, is a great way to make videos, and it kind of throws it back to what you were saying earlier, where it doesn't always have to be about progress. There can be different ways to make the videos and provide the content that people are looking for.
That hits the nail on the head. I could not have said it any better myself. I agree that I think it's incredible to see people coming back to the game because of content that we Snowflakes are creating. I've had many comments. I know Settled has had many comments. I know that you have had comments about just people saying, "Hey, I found your comment, or I found your content on YouTube, and I loved it, and it's brought me back to the game." That's one of the most humbling feelings in the whole RuneScape realm, is just to bring an old face back to the game again. It's just really, really incredible. What do you think it is that has made this Snowflake community so popular, especially among the viewers? Not necessarily among the creators who are playing the accounts, but what do you think as a viewer has made this Snowflake community thrive so much?
So I've always watched RuneScape content with the expectation of watching the grind. I've always sat down and I've watched a video and I've thought, okay, thank God I don't have to put myself in their shoes. Right, thank God I don't have to go through those grinds. I'm seeing them playing the content that I'm like, oh, I wish I can get there one day, but knowing that I didn't have to go through that. And so I think seeing that in a Snowflake perspective. It's a completely different account. It's a completely different spin on the game. So it's something new and, vibrant to watch. But seeing the grinds then, times by 10, and then people sitting here and watching it. And then, like we were saying, all of these new ways to tell the story and to make the video then just adds on top of that by it starts spicing up the content from what, for as long as I can remember, has always been just a compilation of clips that are like, this is my progress, this is where we're at, this is what we plan to do. It just makes it so much more exciting, and I think that's drawing a lot of people in. And I think like on Settled's videos, for example, a lot of people watch it that don't even play RuneScape. And I think such a big key is that it's the content is starting to appeal to everyone. It's not just starting to appeal to the RuneScape community. It's reaching out to these wider audiences that enjoy the grind and they enjoy that storytelling, or they enjoy that video aspect of how it's all put together. And I really like that new age of creating, cooler videos, I guess is the way I'd put it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the bar as a old school RuneScape content creator has been raised so much in the last 6 months. As someone like you who's watched tons of old school content since old school was re-released in 2013, I kind of feel like content got pretty stale, especially in like 2015, 2016 in terms of YouTube content.
Definitely.
After a lot of like big hardcores died and that kind of thing, or even pre-hardcore Iron Man mode, when the Iron Man and Ultimate meta was kind of dwindling in terms of popularity a bit. But now, I mean, I've heard many people say that this is like the golden age of old school RuneScape content creation, and it's just it's really awesome to be a part of it. I think one book that I've been reading recently is a book called Drive by Dan Pink. And he's given a TED Talk about the contents of the book. So if you haven't seen it, go check out Dan Pink's TED Talk. It's called The Science of Motivation. In there, he talks about 3 factors of motivation. And the 3 tenets are autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Autonomy being the urge to direct your own life. Mastery, the urge to get better and better at something that you love doing. And purpose, the desire to be part of something larger than yourself or for the good of the whole. And as I've been reading this book, I cannot help but think of the Snowflake Iron Man old school RuneScape community. That is what Snowflake gameplay is about. Autonomy. Literally forging your own path, as Settled likes to say. And just choosing your own adventure, making up your rules as you go along, exploring uncharted territory in a lot of cases. Mastery, getting better and better at what it is that you do, and knowing your area or knowing your restrictions better than anyone else in the game. And then purpose, which is the community. And that's something that I've said before, but the community is something that I had never forecasted when I started doing this. It was just a couple guys around. I was a big fan of Will Dependent and Kramja Only. And there were a few Zeah only guys and a couple others around, but there really wasn't a community aspect to it. I just kind of decided to join in because I was burnt out of all my other accounts. And here we are in 2019, and the community is by far and away my favorite thing that has happened because of this Snowflake craze. And it's just absolutely humbling. And just in terms of that book that I was just referencing a moment ago, Drive, Snowflakes check all of those boxes. The autonomy, the mastery, and the purpose boxes right there. And it's just absolutely incredible to be a part of this community. TurtleTale, what is the best way to reach you out there on the World Wide Web, sir?
Oh, so there's probably 2 ways. We'll start off with the Twitter handle. So it's at TurtleTale, 2 E's at the end, so Turtle, and then TALEE. Or over on YouTube, which is just TurtleTale, Turtle, TALE. I do read every single comment, so if you guys ever want me to know something or ever want to hit me up over on the Twitter DMs or on YouTube. And you can also find my Discord link on YouTube and on Twitch. Go search for that, and I'm very active in my community at the moment.
Great. Well, I'm sure you will be active in your community going forward as well. I'm happy to have you as part of this community. You've been a wonderful addition the last 2.5 months or so, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where you can take this account in the months coming. So you have my support. Hopefully, you have the rest of the community support as well. And again, may Saren be with you, sir.
Yeah, definitely going to need that one.
Yeah, well, hey, thank you so much, TurtleTale, for taking time out of your busy schedule to have this interview, and I look forward to hopefully being able to work with you in some capacity going forward in the future.
Yeah, no, I definitely look forward to it. No, thank you very much for having me. Like I said, long-time fan, so to be here is very humbling.
I'm happy to have you, man. That's a wrap, man. On the next podcast, I'll be interviewing the owner of my all-time favorite maxed mage-only Snowflake, Mr. Tedious, as well as discussing his prolific Zeah-only Iron Man, so you won't want to miss it. Post your questions you may have for Tedious below in the comments, and you may just have your question answered on the next episode. If you need more Snowflake Iron Man content in your life, scope out the link in the description for our subreddit, Our Unique Iron Men, the central hub for all things Snowflake Iron Man related. The Snowflake Spotlight is a podcast series hosted by me, Caveman only, right here on my YouTube channel every other Friday. Special thanks to TurtleTale for taking time out for this interview, to IG Designs for his background artwork, to you, the listener, for your support in making it this far, and as always, to OSRSBestInSlot.com for sponsoring this podcast. OSRS Best in Slot has quickly become my go-to resource for basically anything PVM related for old school RuneScape. And one of my favorite things about Jamie, the guy behind the operation of this site, is his support for the community. Not only does he sponsor my podcast, of course, but he's looking into branching out to support some more of your favorite content creators in the community too. The site also has links to various PVM guides on YouTube made by folks like Sync, Be the Victim, Mr. Mammal, and many others. So do this man a solid by showing him some support for his site in exchange for his support for various content creators like me and for the community as a whole. The website is also due for a complete overhaul very soon and will be expanding to work alongside even more of your favorite content creators, so look forward to that in the imminent future as well. If you ever forget what the website is, again, you can just search anything related to OSRS gear and it'll be one of the top search results. That's all for now. Thank you for tuning in as always. I'll see you next time.